It's a pretty decent 2x2 as they come under the first of the two pontoons across the track. The red lights, as you can see, 10 seconds to go. The finger is on the button. The final round of the World Endurance Championship is green, and we're spread out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wide across the start line, and straight away the Audis are nipping around the heels at the back of the Toyota, but the Toyota super capacitor has once again done its job and allowed Nicolas Lapierre to just pull out a little bit of a lead from McNish in second place, held on to his position there. Treluer in third, still the GRM in fourth position, looking down through the field. It looks as though Paul, everybody has made the first corner.
Yes, McNish seemed to kind of change his mind a little bit, looking as though he was going to try and dive up on the inside and then switching back to the outside on the entry to the corner. I mean, it's one of those corners, because it is so long, you've got to take three apexes. You can kind of choose where you take them in some ways, and so in the end he wasn't able to steal the march on Nicolas Lapierre in the Toyota, and Nicolas, if anything, he's just pulling away a little bit. The fighting is going on amongst the P2 cars as they squabble around in, what is it, 8th, 9th and 10th places overall, and Olivier Pla it is who's actually got the Oak up into the lead of LMP2 there from a bit further down on the grid, getting the better of James Rossiter with the Lotus. So Olivier Pla in the Oak Morgan Nissan, number 24, has got the lead in LMP2. Nicolas Lapierre is leading the way from Alan McNish and Ben Treluer in the two Audis. Karen Chandok in the JRM HPD, number 22, is there in fourth place. Neil Yarney with the Rebellion is in fifth place. Johnny Kane with the Straka HPD is in sixth place, and Andrea Bellicchi in the other Rebellion car is, I was going to say, in seventh place, but the battle that we're watching on the screen there as the Karen Chandok car having a great battle with Neil Yarney there in the Rebellion car as they come through to complete the first lap, John.
And as they go through, it's Toyota leading, and leading by a handsome margin there of over 1¼ seconds. Here's the battle in the privateer classes. It's through into what is effectively fifth place. Second in the privateers comes the Rebellion of Andrea Bellicchi, just going ahead of Johnny Kane there as they went across the line into turn number one. And this is where the fight is, no doubt about that. Johnny Kane in the silver and blue car, sitting in fourth position, fifth, sixth, seventh position, is just being shuffled back for a moment. But I can't imagine that the Irishman will want to have that position held. It looks as though that, yes, the 61 Corsa car went through at the head of the GTE field, as the first 3 minutes have been relatively problem-free, he says. Ricard Leeds leading the GTE Pro category, and
that's
the
change, John.
yes, go ahead, Grim.
Because of course the Aston Martin set pole position in that class, so Ricard Leeds has actually got the Porsche ahead of the Aston Martin. But it is that battle, isn't it, in the LMP1 privateers that was lighting up the track in the first lap, and we for a moment saw Neil Yarney get certainly alongside and possibly even nose past Chandok, but Chandok took the corner and has been playing a pretty defensive game. But here we go again down the back straight, and it's again Neil Yarney looking for a way by the JRM car, but he can't do it in a straight line, and Chandok retains that place. But close call here for the LMP1 privateers.
Yeah, and that is going to be a battle that hopefully will go on through the whole of this 6 hours. It's an exciting one, and absolutely correct, by the way, if this is your first experience of the WEC, that the championship organisers, Paul, have decided to have a privateer championship, because quite clearly it's nothing to do with the balance between petrol and diesel. We've seen that now that we have petrol and diesel at the front of the field. It's about the ability to throw cubic euros at the design, the development of cars, and the privateers simply can't compete on that financial level.
No, absolutely, and I think that's the right thing to do. As I say, there's two ways of looking at it, and I've had discussions with various people about this. One is that you make the privateers somehow you give them some kind of the opposite of a handicap, some kind of benefit to enable them to keep up with the works entries, or you create a separate class in effect, and it's the second route that the organisers have chosen to take, and I think that's the right route, because whilst it is I think it's wrong to have the gap too big between the privateers and the works entries. It is right that you know, the cubic the cubic spondulics, the whatever currency that's being thrown at it, has to have some kind of impact. But no, so I think it's right that the works cars do have something of a margin. What's amazing though is just the way that not just the works cars but also the privateers have just been able to show up at these races and be so reliable, and it's been consistently that for really the whole of this World Endurance Championship season. I mean, we were looking during the Fuji race at whether we might actually have 100% reliability and get 100% of the starters through to the finish. It didn't happen in the end, but it was not far off over a 6-hour race, and that would have been something to write home about, something that's not really happened before. What is being very impressive at the moment is the way that Nicolas Lapierre is pulling away in that Toyota. We've seen it before, and he's on just his 4th lap at the moment, and he's already 4.5 seconds to the good. So Nicolas Lapierre in the Toyota is really making good his escape, and at the moment neither Alain McNish nor Ben Treluet in the 2 Audis able to do anything about it. So
Graham?
Yeah, Paul, just about to say that LMP1 privateer battle still well alive. The car that really lost out at the start there, John, and we've got start positions, by the way, under investigation, I'm hearing. I'm not quite sure exactly which, but it might be interesting to see a replay of that start to see what the concerns perhaps were of Eduardo Freitas. The car that lost out there was number 15 car that started 8th. It dropped behind the top 3 LMP2 cars. This is the Oak Racing Pescarolo HPD, a returning force in LMP1, now making its way back up through the LMP2 leaders, trying to get on the back of this train, but Dominic Kleihammer somehow did have a really dreadful start, lost positions off the start and through probably turn 1 and 2, where it did look very crowded indeed from my vantage point. As we see Neil Yarni again now having a look, this time up the inside of Karan Chandok, and this time as they get down the back straight, as he got the draft, he's going to get by here, but can he do it before they get into the braking zone? I'm not sure that he can.
He's going to get up alongside, isn't he? The coupe there, just dragging past in a straight line. It's interesting because you've got Toyota power with a coupe shape, which is a little bit more slippery. Karan Chandok there with the open HPD powered car, not able to keep up there, and it was a good bit of driving there by Neil Yarni. Got himself in the right place at the right time, stuck with it, left his braking as late as he possibly could, seemed to wash a little bit wide as he got into the corner, but by then I think Karan Chandok had already kind of accepted the inevitable. So Karan Chandok is now coming under pressure from the other HPD, and it's Johnny Kane who's on the charge with the Stracker car, who's now putting pressure on Karan Chandok in the JRM HPD as they turn out of the turn 1, turn 2, turn 3 complex, all one corner really.
Longest corner in the championship, as Tom Christensen said earlier on, which I really liked. And this is this is now Chandok with Johnny Kane, a revitalised Johnny Kane. Lost that position earlier on as Neil Yarni came through, the Swiss driver in the Swiss entered car, Hop Swiss, as is required for my mother-in-law.
Just wondering, John, Graham was mentioning that Eduardo de Freitas wanting to look at the start positions. It struck me that James Rossiter, or at least one of the LMP2 Lotuses, seemed to be very close to the pit wall as the lights turned to green, certainly over the white line. Not necessarily to gain an advantage, I think just to kind of get a clear view as to what the situation was up ahead of him, but I suspect that was what it probably was. We haven't seen a replay on the screen, but as any further result of the investigation comes to light, then of course we'll keep you informed of it. But it seemed, and you mentioned it, John, to be a very wide start, everybody getting themselves spread fairly wide. But of course that's something that you can do on this kind of circuit built for Formula One with this very wide start finish straight.
Yeah, and the key is of course that you have to look at it the front row slows down, everybody else starts to spread out, and then of course if somebody's overtaken before the start line, that's what will have caused the problem. A couple of people asking if there are 2 safety cars at this track. Always 2 safety cars in the WEC, so at rotation up north.
At least 2.
Well, yes, Le Mans has 3, of course. Everywhere else has 2. At Specutainment, if you'd like to give us a tweet here in the booth. Did Audi change tyres at every stop at Fuji just to prepare for the need to do it here? Says Alfred at Cadpook.
I think they did it in order to try and win the race, to be fair. We'll see what happens here, but certainly from listening to what Alan and Tom Christensen were saying on that introductory lap, it certainly gave the impression that was going to be a tyre where it was an issue, and we may well be seeing this single stinting of the tyres again from Audi. What will be interesting, of course, is whether Toyota choose the same strategy, or whether Toyota are able to double stint their tyres, because that kind of a decision is going to be the one that wins and loses the race. It's so close indeed between Toyota and Audi that just the extra 20 seconds or 25 seconds or so that it takes to change the tyres could make all the difference.
Yeah, fair point. And that is absolute time. Again, if you are new to this is the fact that you can't do any other work whilst you are filling the car with fuel. So if there is fueling to be done, nothing else can happen. So thereby, what we're saying is there, logically, that in that situation, the tyres, however long it takes to do the tyres, is the absolute extra amount of time that the car stands still.
One of the interesting things to come out of the analysis of the Fuji race was that whilst the fueling times for Audi and Toyota were roughly the same, and bearing in mind that the Audi takes diesel, the Toyota takes petrol.
That's a good point.
But of course, it is important to know that the way that the refueling regulations are written means that both cars can take on their amount of fuel, different amounts of fuel, in about the same time. And the actual fueling time, time spent putting the petrol or diesel into the tank, is about 20 seconds for both Toyota and Audi. However, the tyre change time in Fuji for Audi was 24-25 seconds, and their best time was 22 seconds. For Toyota, who only did 3 tyre changes, they were taking 29 seconds, 28 seconds, and their best time was 25 seconds for the tyre change. So certainly in terms of the pit stop, Toyota is about the same as Audi in terms of refueling, but they seem to be a little bit slower, or Audi seems to be a little bit quicker, look at it whichever way you will, on the tyre change. So it's the tyre change that does have the potential for making the difference.